Okay. So remember all of our practices that we've been doing in the actions and words and all that stuff too. So remember solar and empathy, nonverbals, facial expressions. These are all that you've been kind of working with, tone of voice. How has all that been working? So think about normal conversations that you have. How do you change in your counseling? What's that look like? Like Jillian, when you had started and you've been working with people, how has it been different from you using these helping skills other than from a normal conversation, but using these in a counseling type atmosphere?
I think I am more aware that I am wearing my counselor hat.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know, there's just that as I walk in the counseling office and seeing my client, I'm like, okay, I'm a counselor now. And so most of the time, as I'm listening to my client, I don't know, I just have that hat. I can't, and then after the session, um, to Susan's question earlier, like the way I end my session too,
Yeah.
um, I kinda give them a clue that I like, I always have my notes. I'm kind of like closing it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that would give them a clue, like, okay, we're ending. And then I always ask them, is there anything else that I missed today that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah,
And if there is, please let me know. And if there's not, then maybe we should pray.
that's
They
good.
tell you.
Oh, so Jillian, the one of the best thing you can do is just start praying.
Yeah, I know, but then it's just me. I always ask question, but then, yeah, that one particular client I was telling you about, it was just like, I'm like, I should have not asked that question, but
Yeah.
whatever. She did drop a bomb, but
Yes, yes,
it was,
yes. Yeah.
but yeah, that's how I end my session normally.
Yeah, definitely praying at the end of it kind of gives the clue that, hey, we're drawn to a close. So that's a
But
good.
also, I would ask them though because I have a client right now that she claimed that she doesn't like God, although she knows that she's in a Christian
Mhm.
counseling, so I still ask everyone, like, would it be okay to pray to end our session?
Yeah. So you had
So
somebody say no?
she claimed, but then her intake did not say anything, so I'm kinda aware of that, um,
Yeah.
which I'm glad I asked actually on our first session if it would be okay to pray, and she said that it's fine, but she would rather not, and I said, "Well, you're kind of like in a Christian counseling session, and the way I do my counseling is to pray. But if you're not okay with that, if you're 100% about it, I'm not gonna pray, but I would like to pray if you're okay."
Yeah.
And then she nodded her head. She said, "Okay." I said, "Good."
Very good. You know what? I mean, that's ways to open the door for things later. I I may have told you my story about a guy that came in and I mean, he had so much against him. You know, he had a substance abuse, he had cerebral palsy, he had all kinds of things, in his life where he was just mad at God for, the
Mhm.
cards that he felt like he had been dealt and all that stuff too. And he goes, I know I'm in a church, but don't mention God at all on this, because he was a referral to me from another person.
Mhm.
So, so anyway, come along. So 6, 8 months later, he, and the cool thing about it, his handler, oh, the guy was blind too. I forgot to tell you. So the guy was blind too, on top of it. So his handler, who drove him around everywhere, was a Christian guy too. So the very cool thing was I would just kind of plant these seeds and and the guy that was his handler, I don't know what, because I never told him any because of confidentiality and everything too. But the guy would just maybe ask the guy questions or whatever. But anyway, I think around 9 months after we started, he gave himself to the Lord.
Mm.
And then after that, he was talking to people with disabilities and things like that too. And it just his whole life changed.
Yeah.
And he says, and I go, tell me about that. And he says it's God, and never said counseling or whatever. It's God, doing all this. And that's exactly what I want to hear,
Mm.
from these people, because then it is a real thing. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So I say,
Yeah.
just keep doing what you're doing, love on them, you know,
Thank
and take those open doors.
Doug,
Yeah.
I had a situation this week in my family. Um, the Reader's Digest version. My aunt had been in a 54-year same-sex relationship,
Mm.
and she suddenly became ill in a matter of about 72 hours, was put on hospice, and within 96 hours she passed.
Oh my gosh.
She passed day before yesterday, I believe. Um, no, it was Friday. Anyway, my mother wanted to go to North Carolina to see her one more time and share the gospel, but my aunt said, don't come. Um, then my cousin started messaging me, who was staying with my aunt, and I don't know if she's gay or not, but she's a strong supporter of the LGBTQ plus community. Um, she eventually told me that my aunt didn't want to see my mother. She loved her very much, but she couldn't handle the gospel again on her
Mm.
deathbed.
Right.
So my mom was like, Cindy, should I go? Should I not go? Should I go? Should I not go? And so I normally would have just said, Mom, you know, you got to respect what she wants you to do. I would have normally just told my mom what I thought. And so instead, I took a step back and took a breath and said, well, Mom, what did Alice say? Well,
Mm.
that she doesn't want me to come. And what message is that going to send to the rest of the family if you're not respectful of her wish?
Mm.
Well, it's going to turn them again more. And so instead of just charging in there and telling my mom what to do, um, or what I thought she should do, I kind of worked with her to work it out. And she's like, well, you're telling me the exact same thing your dad said. Um, and I was like, well, you know what? She knows what you believe. You've told her that throughout your life. If
Mm.
she's going to accept Christ, she doesn't need you holding her hand. That's
Yeah.
the work of the Holy Spirit. Um, and then on the flip side, I was able to just, remind my extended family that regardless of their lifestyle choices, we still love them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was able to put some of the skills of empathy and especially like the silence, asking probing questions into place instead of just charging through and telling them what I thought.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, so you're seeing a difference in the way that you operate, sounds like.
It was conscious. I mean, I was like, okay, here's an opportunity to practice what I'm learning.
Yeah. That's a great point. And here's the other part, and it's not always going to feel good. Doing the right thing sometimes doesn't always feel good. Meaning, I don't know what I don't know what the answer is to what you just said. I don't. Um, yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. But going through it and kind of you were kind of validated a little bit at least in your family aspect of your dad saying the same thing, and yeah.
I mean, I didn't feel like I needed validation.
No, but I'm just saying, at least there
No,
was something there.
but it did. I mean, but I was glad that, my questions led her to a result that was harmonious with her husband.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Hmm. Well, I'm sorry about your loss too.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anybody else have any thoughts or anything? Get started here. Uh, um, so you guys know about all of these here that you've been working with. And then adding these to, restatements, summaries. So we should be doing these or at least introducing these into working with each other. right? So probing questions, questions, labeling feelings. That's a good one. Disclosure of feelings, reflections of feelings. Okay, so remember we were in the exploration stage. And so now into the insight stage. So how does that look with these skills? So in the insight stage, what we're doing is you're going to see a lot of people and they're going to have all of these defenses up. And that's okay. You know, those defenses have brought them to where they're at today, whether it's good or bad, right? So they're there in front of you with these defenses. So what would it look like not having these defenses, or having, a way of having self-awareness that they have these defenses and knowing the need, if I'm going to have better relationships with others, I need to overcome these or change or whatever. So defenses, transference, countertransference, challenging, here we go, challenging the client that's sitting in front of you, open questions and probing questions. So we're going to into some of that. So what is insight? So insight, okay, hang on one second. Got you. Okay, there we go. Insight is seeing things from a new perspective. So remember the stages of change, right? Pre-contemplation, contemplation, right? And so then we're getting insight into there's a change that needs to be made. Do we know what it is yet? We may not even know what that change is, but we know something's got to be different. Okay, so insight is seeing things from a new perspective, making connections between things, or having an understanding of why these things happen as they do. Why do I get angry when a person criticizes me? Why do I, do this when somebody does this? Why do others do this when I do something, right? Sometimes clients hit a gold nugget of insight, but more often there is a smattering of gold dust as they work hard to get insight over that time, right? So that just means you're not going to have a big home run hit every time you go into a counseling session. Wouldn't that be awesome, where the heavens open up and the angels sing and all that good stuff? Yeah, it's just not going to happen that way. It's going to be these little things. Why is that? Is because they have their defenses up. This is the way I've always done it. You ever heard that? This is the way I've always done it. So remember, there's a story that one of my teachers told one time. It's like, I think it was like Thanksgiving. They were on the Thanksgiving, and then this mother put this pan out, and then she took a ham out and cut both ends of it off and put it to the side. Okay, put the ham in and baked it. And so the little girl was like next to her, goes, "Mom, why do you do that?" She goes, "Well, because my mother did it." Right. So she goes to her grandmother. Right. She says, "Well, how did you bake ham?" She goes, "Well, I'd put it in this little thing, this pan, and cut off both ends and put it in and bake it." "Well, why did you do that?" "I don't know, because my mother did it." So great grandmother was there. She goes up to great grandmother and says, "How did you cook ham?" She goes, "Well, I take my pan, take both sides, and cut that off, and then put the pan in and bake it." She goes, "Why did you do that?" She goes, "Well, back then the pans were a lot smaller, and I had to cut the ends off." Right. So all these people are just seeing this happen, not knowing why it's happening, so they can, continue the traditions, right? So it's something I've always done. I don't know why, but it's something that I've always done. So we just keep doing that. Let's have a little dialogue here. So why might some clients gain insight quicker than other clients? Why might some clients gain insight quicker than other clients?
I think sometimes it depends on how ready they are to do the hard work when they come into counseling.
Absolutely. Yep. Partly maybe being open-minded too. I know I need to change something. and this person's going to help me change. Maybe it's building trust quicker, with them. What else?
It's some
Okay,
people
based off,
have.
Oh,
was that,
Go ahead, Dylan.
I was going to say, based off what you just said, some clients might be waiting for you to give them the answer.
there you go. That's a good one. Absolutely. And sometimes they already know the answer and they want permission for something, right? Gaining permission from you. That happens every once in a while. Felicia, what were you going to say?
I was just gonna say, sometimes people are more emotionally intelligent than others.
Mm,
I mean, some people are just more in tune as to why they do particular things, or whatever. So it comes a little bit easier than for other people, where maybe they push feelings and thoughts back, where someone else is more in tune to those things.
that's good. Yeah, very good. Absolutely. And you'll see that a lot. And I think you go along and people you go, well, they must be really healthy, emotionally intelligent. Whereas sometimes trauma, if somebody's going through some trauma, that stunts their growth, and I mean, you'll learn as you go. It's like some people get stunted in the age where that trauma happened, right? And you'll see them act differently, or even talk differently about things at that point. So what's the importance? What do you think the importance of insight plays in the helping? You have somebody in front of you and you get to the insight stage, or what should be the insight stage. What is important about that?
I mean, I would think it keeps it from being useless trauma dumping. So if I put together a client's whole life story, it's like, well, okay, all that stuff happened, but what does any of it mean?
There you go.
Okay. That's
That's
me finding that out as the purpose of this stage.
Perfect. That's awesome. Yep. So you're working with a client maybe 1, 2, 3 weeks, and they've just dumped all this information at your feet. What do we start doing with all that? Then we're collecting what's the important piece of this that I can work with. We start picking that up, and then we're kind of putting in our treatment plan. This is the direction we're going, right? Instead of just every week coming and they dump. Nope, this week I've got the information that I need, and we're going to start moving it in this direction, right? So that's important in the insight stage, is where they know, okay, there's kind of like we've turned the corner of the information dump. Now we're putting a plan together to move forward. Very important. Okay. So there's a story in your book that you guys can go through, Frank and Frank. So I think in this, we don't probably have to read the story, but it says we need to understand or an explanation as to why things happen so that it makes sense to us. Sometimes we'll never know why things happen, right? And it's not up to us to know. But sometimes, having that understanding helps us. For me, it's like when I started naming emotions and everything too, and saying, okay, when I have, and putting it in my body, where did I feel it in my body, right? A lot of times when I get nervous, I feel it in my gut. And so I go, oh, that's the nerves that I have when I'm ready to speak or something like that. It's going to happen. So that it just tells me that I'm nervous, and that's okay. How about insight leads to the discovery of new facts and recognition that is significant to them? That's where we picked up all these pieces that were on the floor, and now we're starting to make, we're starting to recognize and make recognition of those things and make meaning out of all of this stuff. It's kind of what Dylan just said. We can make different choices in the future. So we keep doing this, and this. What's that? They say, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. Well, now we got to do something different to have different results. So it's helping them walk through that. So Holy Spirit giving us insight through Christ Jesus in 1 Timothy 4:16. Take heed unto thyself and unto the doctrine, continue in them, for in doing this thou shalt both save thyself and them that hear thee. So what is, what's going on and what's different? How can I make changes, then model those changes? So important, like maybe as a male, as the leader of his family, to model, right? And it could be us to model, like that guy I just told you about a second ago that had all of these things, handicaps, I would say, but once he accepted and became a new creature, he was able to model his change to others. Proverbs 21:2 says, every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord pondereth the hearts. That's a good one.
Can I share something a little bit, if that's
Yeah.
okay?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
So I think I'm with one of my client. We're in this stage now in the inside, and I'm so excited actually for her. Like everyone is saying, like she is so ready for change for herself, and she is a people pleaser, and so earlier we talked about she's the one that I was using the genogram for a couple weeks now, and then realizing that how her relationship with her dad, um why it's happening, the conversation with her dad and all these things. And then today she literally said something, um, I need to go back to college for myself and not to please my dad. And it was so good to hear that from her, because I'm like, now we get it. And she's such a different person from 3 weeks ago to today when I first met her. And I don't know, it was just so cool. I'm like, I know this is my third week, but I love seeing the changes already in herself. And she even said that to me, that her mom said something this weekend, that she's a different the way she talked to her dad. And I'm like, I just love that. I just love
That's
that. I'm
so
like,
good.
oh, I love it. Yeah, today I'm like, literally, I think this is the stage where we're at right now. And she literally get it this morning, and I'm so proud of her. So
So
yeah.
partly so differentiating herself from others,
Yeah.
which is good. So I love that. I love that. Good job.
And I made her say it to herself, because I was gonna tell her that, but then the silence that you were talking about, I was just like, I want her to say it. I don't wanna say that, there's some changes already. And she looked at me, and then she said, "I get it now." And I'm like, "What did you get?" And she said, "I
Ooh,
need to go back to college for myself and not to
ooh.
my dad."
That's
And it
excellent.
was so beautiful. I'm like, "I'm so proud of you for saying that."
Wow. Good
It was
job.
so good.
That does feel good, doesn't it? Yeah. Seeing so how old is she again?
She's 20.
Oh, see? Yeah, that's a good age.
And I told her, I'm like, it's time for you. Sometimes we have a still moment where God asks us to just be still. And I told her, enjoy this. When you're gonna find and when God opened those doors, you're gonna be so busy, and you're gonna remember this moment, and you're like, I missed this moment where I can just nap. I'm like, trust me.
Yeah.
But she get it today, and I'm so proud of her. So just
That's
wanted to
the
share that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And you know what? And it's okay to tell her you're proud of her too. Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Good. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. It's always good to hear. Okay, so markers for readiness for insight, markers of readiness for insight. So clear statement of awareness of a problem. So there you go, just kind of what you just explained, right? So they have this problem, and there's a clear awareness of what it is, and the knowledge of the need to change, right? Sometimes they know what the issue is, but not what the solution is. So she came up with the solution, right? She knew what the issue was. She just didn't know what the solution was until she said it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good job. Okay, statement of a lack of understanding. Stated eagerness and willingness to understand. I love that. Anybody who's got that willingness, they just don't know what the answer is yet. But they have that willingness to learn and the eagerness. I love that. High level of affective distress experiences as a pressure to resolve the problem. Remember what I said before? It's like the pain of not changing has to be greater than the pain to change. All right. So that's what this is kind of saying here. Markers indicating a lack of readiness. Okay. Telling a story in a non-reflective manner. So they just come in and vomit all over you and blame everybody else. I've got somebody I'm supervising right now, and we watched the video the other day, and this guy just would blame everybody on everybody but himself, never take any. And even though the counselor was sitting there going, well, what's your responsibility in this? He would never take it, you know. And anyway, it was, you know, if you didn't know any better, you'd say narcissistic, but to me, and it could be part narcissism, but it's always just not, you know, this guy wasn't ready to take responsibility for anything. He wanted to blame others, and he even blamed the counselor, right? The counselor has nothing to do with it. You'll get some of that stuff. I'm not changing, blah, blah, blah. Well, you're not doing these things. Right there. Blaming others for their problems. That was the next one. They may say the problem is my wife, husband, blah, blah, blah. They need to change, not me. That comes a lot. It's funny, you'll get couples that come in, they'll start talking, and the husband, wife, whoever will go, well, they're the one that needs to change. I'm not going to come to the next session. They're the ones that need to keep coming, right? Instead of taking any responsibility for themselves. They may say they don't understand me. What would you suggest I tell them? The client is not taking responsibility for themselves, is what they're saying. Okay.
What do you do in a situation like that? Because I know of a situation like that of a person who was going to counseling, who is well, they weren't going, I don't know if they're going now, but they were going to counseling. And they had did a lot of things, but they were blaming a spouse. And they even, when the counselor finally confronted that person,
Yeah.
they got upset and left and went to a different counselor. What do you do in a situation like that? I mean, what recourse do you have?
Pretty much, you just gotta let them go to it, because they'll go to enough where hopefully the counselor will keep saying, what's your responsibility in this? And then just keep going to one, you know, to get that. And then they finally go, well, gosh, the common denominator and all this is me, you know. Unfortunately, they have to come in. You can tell them, I mean, you can be point blank on some things, right? And tell them, and that doesn't mean they're going to accept it. And it always comes with time. So they're still in the pre-contemplation stage, right? They're not in they may be blind to what the problem is. Generally, they're not blind to it. They just want to blame somebody else for it and want others to change and not myself, because it may be too much work, or they may be even thinking, with this work, I don't want to appear wrong, right? It could be their image that they're trying to save, or, you know, in narcissism, that's huge, is they protect their image at all costs.
Yeah, this person seems to, he wants a lot of empathy and sympathy from people and to understand him, but he doesn't see where he needs to change.
Right.
And it's kind of disturbing to me because he knows that he's a Christian, but he's just doing all kind of things behind the scenes. So
Sure. Yeah, unfortunately, that's going to happen until they're ready.
okay.
Hey,
Yeah.
Doug,
Yeah.
this kind of reminds me of a big part of resiliency training in the Army.
Yeah.
And one of the big things we focused on was redirecting ideas about, this sounds exactly like types of scenarios that they'd bring up and have us workshop through. And it's like the whole question we kept asking, this is the way I kind of worded what they said was, okay, but what do you have control over? Okay, but what do you have control over?
Yeah.
Okay, but you can't control that person, right? You can't change what they do, but what can you change? And
Absolutely.
eventually you get them back to like, oh, well, I guess get them to start looking at themselves every time they say anything other than themselves. Well, what can you do about that?
Absolutely. Yep. Just keep redirecting it back. And another thing is just like what Charlie said, that is you can go up to the board, draw a circle, and then draw a bigger circle around that. And the inside circle is here are things that you can change about that person. And here are things you can't change. And then you say we're only going to concentrate on this inner circle. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's kind of just gotta kind of redirecting it back to what's your responsibility? What's your responsibility? There's people who would sit in front of me, and that's all I would say the whole time until they would kind of get it's like, well, I guess we're not going to talk about that other person, are we? You know what I mean? No, we're talking about you. You're the only one in front of me, right? It's good. Okay, so transference is placing onto the therapist characteristics that belong to other people with whom one has unresolved issues. Analysis and interpretation of transfers can be a powerful therapeutic tool to facilitate understanding of the client's relationship. It'd be times when they're sitting in there and you may say something and they snap back at you. Well, they're projecting that anger or whatever that they're feeling from somebody else onto you, which is a good thing because then you can say, oh, I noticed when this happened, you did this, right? You can do a lot of work through that. And then countertransference is the feelings that you get, okay? Helpers' reactions to the client that originate in any unresolved issues of the helper. And I'll be totally transparent. I had one person that came in every week, and I'm like, and I'd see them at Wednesday, 2:00 on my sheet, the clients that I had coming in, and I go, oh, no way. Almost every Wednesday. And this person never missed, and I had them for a long time. Well, that was my countertransference. Why, and then I had to deal with that myself going, why do I feel this way whenever this person comes in? To me, and the person was borderline and all this, it was like, and I started with this person as an intern, and even after I graduated, I still had her. And it was just, I had to really do some soul searching on myself of what is going on inside me. Well, it got to the point where I kept seeing this person and nothing was ever changing. So I felt what? Helpless, terrible, not like I wasn't a good counselor. Felt so many things, So that was my countertransference of the person. If unrecognized, countertransference behaviors can have a negative influence on the therapy because you could go, I don't want to feel this, so I'm not going to address this issue, things like that. So awareness of countertransference can facilitate the therapeutic. So if I'm aware of it, you know what? It can facilitate a lot inside you of like, I know what I need to work on with somebody else, and go talk to a colleague or something about what you're feeling. And they might probably go, I'm feeling the same thing about X, so you're not alone in it. So setting the expectations in the insight stage. So useful to educate clients about the shift into deeper understanding, saying, man, you are understanding this better. So once they start understanding, then and they know, hey, we're going to dig deeper. Guess what? It may not feel very good either. And they may go in and out. You may go in and out of the exploration stage and the insight stage. The working stage is the next one. You might go in and out of that one, back into insight. You'll notice that once those things start happening. Allows clients to be aware of and agree to the shift in the helping process. Childhood experiences are formative, but experiences later in life can also have a huge impact, something that they're new that they're experiencing. Increased insight and self-understanding can lay the foundation for the action stage. So increased insight, a lot of aha moments, right? So that's why I ask you every week, what was a big aha you had this week? So that's insight into, I'm learning something new about myself, about the process, about whatever I'm putting in place. Okay, 3 goals with the helping skills in the insight stage. Challenging. I like challenging to foster awareness. So challenge discrepancies, challenge thoughts, chair work, humor, silence, these are things that you can use, challenge responsibility, nonverbal behaviors, and so on. So how do we facilitate insight? This is where you're going to ask a lot more open-ended questions and probing. So we want them to, this is, at the first of it, exploration stage, you asked questions and they talked a lot. Now in the insight stage, it's going to be more 60-40. You still want them talking a lot, but you're going to be adding more and more into the discussion too, and maybe even asking more questions. Then be giving your interpretation of the situation, and maybe even putting some self-disclosure in there. Then working with therapeutic relationship, here's where you really want to start using a lot of immediacy. And then really in the immediacy stage here, you are pointing out things to them. And so when they're having these big aha moments, you can, point out, I noticed this when you did this. So maybe when you talk about that person, I notice you take deep breaths. Tell me more about that. Oh, that person makes me anxious, so I have to regulate. That's the way I regulate. Oh, tell me more about why this person makes you nervous. So you're getting more and more into that immediacy. Okay. Challenging to foster awareness. Clients need to become aware of their own thoughts and their behaviors. So that's where that immediacy can come into play in a big way. And, in their behaviors and so on, so that they can move, or they can have more choice in how they live. Clients need to hear how others react to them. So remember when I was kind of saying, and I say this in group counseling too, but the session that you're in is a small picture of the big world out there. So you want the session that's in there to be kind of a picture of what's going to go on out there. So when I say that, meaning clients need to hear how others react to them. What if you have somebody that's in your session with you and they're kind of a bully? What would you do with that? You can tell them, is like, this is how I experience you. I'm experiencing you as kind of a bully. I'm wondering if other people experience that. And that can open up a lot. And that could be a lot of ahas going, I don't, either a lot of the good things. I mean, a lot of things could happen. They could go, I didn't realize, that makes sense why, my wife or whoever backs away from me when I get angry. Or this could be something too. It's like, yes, that's what I want to inflict on others, right? Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I'm doing a good job of it. How bad would that be? So we want them to kind of react in the first way. It's like, I was kind of unaware that I made people feel that way. Yeah, so you can use immediacy that way. So when you do this, it begins a self-examination process, so they can take inventory of how I do present myself. And awareness, becoming more conscious of thoughts. I love this. Feelings, behaviors, and impact on others. Now I'm getting more insight. Were you gonna say something, Jillian?
I was gonna say I had my first couple last night. It was actually in your office.
Uh-huh.
'Cause- and we were in this like awareness, like trying to, I know we're supposed to not have sides. I did not pick sides. I told him I was very blunt in the beginning. I told him I'm not gonna pick sides. Like there is no way I'm gonna pick sides. I'm here to help you guys. And I'm so glad I said that, by the way, because the husband was like, well, I'm thankful that you said that because I really don't want a female therapist
Oh,
in the first place. He literally told me that after I said something like that. I said, "Oh, tell me about it." And
good
he's
job.
like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I'm just worried that you're gonna pick her side."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Thank you, God, for for giving me that, like, instead of like telling them that I'm not picking sides." But yeah, there was a lot last night. I thought there were gonna be a wrestling in your office last night, but I was just, it was a lot. And I think I might need help
You know
from you on
what?
that.
Yes. So, if you want to drill down a little bit on that aspect, it's like I'm afraid that you're going to pick sides. And then you can really drill into that because really what he's
Mhm.
saying is I don't I don't have a voice.
Yeah.
Right. So he's just saying, my wife doesn't listen to me, maybe the rest of my family doesn't listen to me. And then I'm going to come in here where it's really critical that we're working on our relationship. And what I'm afraid of is you're going to tell me everything that
Mhm.
she's telling me to, and your guys are going to gang up on me and not listen to me.
And then towards the end of session after I prayed, he made a comment of, and he told his wife, and he looked at me and it's like, we're in the right place.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay.
Tell,
So yeah, and I'm so glad that he I felt like he's opening up to me too.
so did
So
you talk to him a little bit about that, what he said?
no, because they were about to leave.
Okay.
But I heard him say that after I prayed, it's like we are in the right place.
Excellent. So what I
And
would go ahead.
no, go ahead, sorry.
No, I would say, so next week, so, kind of do what happened throughout this week and just say, last week you said you'd be afraid you're going to ganged up on. And then at the end, you said, we're in the right place. Tell me more about that. I would have him say, because I felt, and see what he says. Maybe he's going to, because
Okay.
I felt understood. I felt listened to. I felt heard. And I feel like this is a place that's safe. And maybe even
Okay.
give him some words. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because when there's a couple in there, I may give them words because I want the other person to hear it too, because they acknowledged it, right? I feel safe. I feel heard. I feel I can be vulnerable here, things like that. I want the other person to hear that because then I want them to create the same environment at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's definitely a lot. And I made them, I was like, because I'm like, I felt like they're gonna punch each other last night. But I was just sitting there, I'm like, okay, well, one of you may want to leave. Because in my head, I'm like, okay, this is not good. But then to calm them down, I made them, because this is just me. I think the way I ask people question, I said, okay, so what do you think about marriage? And I made them like say it. And then the wife was telling me, God, she said, She said God should be the center and God should be the first. I said, okay. And then she stopped. And I'm like, okay, like you need to continue. And she said, I understand what you were trying to do here. I said, no, I'm just asking you what this marriage looks like to you.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a tricky question.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because she, not to go into details, but basically she's choosing her son over her husband. And so that's why I'm trying to have her say it, but she won't say it.
Good job. See, good job. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah,
But here's the thing, that's part of the insight, right? So now they're discovering things, even if they don't want to say it, they eventually will. Or
he
they'll
said
do something different.
the husband said it. The husband said marriage should be
Yeah.
God, although he said he doesn't really like church, but because that's how he heard it from other people, that's what he said. And then should be my wife and then kids.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason she cannot say it
Mm.
because she knows. Obviously she knows, but she just won't say it and admit it.
Yeah, and I'm not in the room, but it could be that she's afraid of if I'm getting all the love I need from this child, right? It makes me feel like it's my purpose and all that stuff too. And if I have to do this over here, yeah,
Mhm.
who knows? Yeah, we'll have to talk more about that. That's good.
Yes, I would love to.
Good job. So, Proverbs and counseling. I love Proverbs. So, a nation falls through lack of guidance, but victory comes through the counsel of many. I love that. 15:22 says, plans fail without advice. If we try to leave it to our own accord, plans fail, because if I don't run it past others and they shoot holes in my plans, it may be a tragic fail, right? But with many counselors, they are confirmed. Where there is strife, there is pride, but wisdom is found in those who take advice. Humbleness, humility, all of those things. Those were just a few of my favorite proverbs for counseling. Okay, so chapter 11 is coming up, skills for fostering awareness. I want to play that video that I was talking about, and also kind of want to talk about it a little bit. So let me set it up a little bit. And I talked to you a little bit about this girl, Katie Morton. She does a ton of videos. She's changed the way she's done videos here recently. Because they get paid, so they do a lot of, I don't know. A lot of people have changed the way because they get paid more through the more people who watch their videos and everything too. So they kind of open it up a little bit more to outside of the counseling world. But so anyway, she's talking about her first session here. Can you see her on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. And I got to turn the sound on so you can hear it. Okay, let's listen to this real quick.
Hi, Katie. It's so nice to meet you. And in looking at the paperwork that you filled out, I see that this is your first therapy appointment. You also wrote that you have been experiencing some symptoms of anxiety. Is that what prompted you to make this appointment, or what brought you in today? Yeah, I haven't been feeling like myself, and I'm anxious a lot. When you say that you're anxious a lot, what does that mean to you, and what does this anxiety feel like? Well, I don't know. I mean, most days I just feel overwhelmed. And then sometimes my heart races, and my thoughts, they run through my mind. It feels like 1,000,000 miles a minute. And it's honestly, it's even gotten more difficult for me to talk to my friends, or sometimes even get out of the house. And have you been feeling this way for very long, or is this more of a recent change? It's been happening for a couple of years now. But in the last few months, it's gotten much worse. And so I figured, I should see somebody about it. Well, I'm really glad that you did. And we will figure out what is causing this and try to get you some tools and techniques to better manage the symptoms. Has anything else changed for you in the last few months that you think could account for the increase in your anxiety symptoms? Well, maybe. I mean, I'm definitely home more now since they decreased my hours at work, and money has also been a little bit tight, but that's really it. I just can't think of really anything else that could have caused it. That's okay. Work and money stress could be what's causing your anxiety, but we can keep thinking about it, and if anything else comes to mind, just let me know. Have you ever been on any medication for your anxiety or seen a doctor about it? I did go and see my regular doctor about 6 months ago because I thought something was wrong with my heart. Like I said, it felt like it was racing and it got me worried, and so he had me wear this heart monitor for a few days, which was terrible and annoying, but it turns out nothing's really wrong. And so he told me that it was probably most likely psychological and to see a therapist or a psychiatrist. So here I am. Well, it is very common to confuse physical health and mental health issues. But I'm really glad that you got that checked out first, because I always like my patients to see their doctors as well to ensure that the symptoms don't have a physical cause. And I see that you put your doctor's information here on the paperwork too, so that's great. And I just want you also to know that I would never reach out to your doctor or anyone without your written consent, because everything that you say here is completely confidential, with a few important exceptions, okay? First, if I worry that you are a danger to yourself or someone else, I may have to break confidentiality to protect you or the person that you could harm. But most of the time, we will have talked about it and sorted it out ourselves. Breaking confidentiality will always be a last resort, okay? And I'm also a mandated reporter, which means that if there is ongoing child, elder, or dependent adult abuse, I'm going to have to report it. And I will be forced to break confidentiality if I receive a court order. But other than that, everything that you say here will stay here. Does that make sense? I think so, yeah. But what if someone tells you about abuse in their past? Do you have to report that, even if it happened like a long time ago? As long as there aren't children, elders, or dependent adults around the abuser now, meaning that other protected people aren't at risk, then I don't have to report it. Once you are over 18, it is completely up to you if you want to file a police report or take any other action, and I am more than happy to help you with whatever you decide. Okay, thanks. Do you have any other questions about the information in the paperwork that I gave you? No, not that I can think of right now. Okay, well, know that you can always ask me about anything that doesn't make sense, or if you just need more clarification. Will do. Now, back to your anxiety. Have you tried anything to better manage it, like maybe breathing exercises or meditation? Has any of that worked, or have you given that a go? Yeah, I did. I tried those. I tried breathing and meditation, and they suck. It honestly just made me focus on my breath more, and it just kept getting faster and faster, and it made me feel worse. And I really, to be honest, I don't know what else to do. It just makes me feel so shitty and like completely out of control. I hate it. I know, anxiety can be so uncomfortable, but don't worry. Breathing exercises and meditation don't work for most of my anxious patients, so you are definitely not alone. And there are so many other tools and techniques that we can try. Yeah, because those just didn't work, and I was worried that you were going to have me to keep trying it and ask me to continue to do it, and ugh. Oh no, I won't ever make you continue doing something that only causes you to feel worse. I may push you to try something that's difficult to do, but our goal is to get you feeling better as soon as possible. Oh, okay. And speaking of goals, what are you hoping to get out of therapy, or how would you know that therapy has been successful? Well, I guess if my anxiety goes away, I would think that
Love that question, by the way.
therapy had worked. Or if I at least have better ways to deal with it. because I can't, I can't keep living this way. I know it can be so uncomfortable and upsetting. Our main goal is to lower your anxiety and get you some tools to better manage it if it pops back up. Does that sound about right? Kind of, that's what your main goal is? Yeah, that works for me. How long do you think this is going to take? I know this is a terrible answer, but everyone is different. But I can tell you that once we find one tool that works for you, you will start feeling better. It's the feeling of it being out of control that seems to be the most upsetting. So if we can get you feeling like you have some power over it, that should really help. Okay, so what can I do? Because I don't have any other ideas of how to stop feeling this way. I want you to try a few things. First, when you find your thoughts beginning to race, when they start to speed up, I want you to stand up and do a full body shake, like out the ends of your arms, through your feet. I know it sounds really weird and crazy, but we do know through research that this action can help release that excess energy and anxiety and calm our nervous system down. So just give it a try. And second, try some thought stopping. When you find your thoughts starting to race, say, stop, 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 either out loud or even just inside your head, and do it until the racing thoughts can't be heard anymore. Then I want you to go through in detail using all 5 senses and tell me about a favorite memory that you've had. Like, did any come to mind when I just said that? It could be like a vacation or just a nice day you had. I did have a great time like 2 winters ago when my friends and I took a ski trip to Whistler. I just remember I enjoyed myself. Everyone seemed to be having a good time. And yeah, that's probably a memory that I could go to. It was just so nice there. Perfect. That is great. So once the thoughts quiet or slow down, then force your brain into that memory and just keep telling it back to yourself. What happened? How you felt? Who was there? As many details as you can remember, okay? Got it. I can definitely try that. Not sure if it'll work, but I'll give it a go. That's all I ask. And of course, let me know if those don't work because I could come up with more ideas. Oh, and finally, I want you to write down some of your most common anxious thoughts, like maybe 3 to 5 of them, but no more than 10. If you find these are really easy to come up with, don't get too carried away. We'll stop at 10. And then bring that in when I see you next week. Does that sound doable? Yeah, I think so. I'll definitely give these things a try. Can you write down the homework for me so I don't forget? Because there's no way I'm going to remember all this. Oh, of course. Thank you. So will I see you at the same time next week? Yeah, if that works for you, that works for me. Yeah, I can do this time next week. Yeah. Let me get my payment out. Thanks. Okay, I will see you then. Okay, thanks. I'll see you next week. Now, there may be other things a therapist would try to get into during a first appointment, like possibly your family history and whether or not anyone related to you struggles with anxiety as well. But I ask for that information on my intake sheets, and we'll get into that at another session. To me, it's more important that my new patient feels heard and leaves with some goals and tools to try out. We all know how long it can take for us to finally reach out for help, so I just want to make sure that they feel supported and hopeful as quickly as possible. I hope that this was helpful and gave you an idea of what to expect during your very first therapy appointment. Have a great week, and I will see you next time.
Oh, okay. All right. So what did you guys see and hear, experience?
One of the things that I noticed was how quickly, and now I know it was just kind of an example video, but how quickly she sought to, and she kind of mentioned at the end, give tools and develop insights and give solutions, like a very solution focused, almost kind of DBT style-esque situation. But I wonder if that's because is she addressing acuity initially, right? And so she's like, okay, this person is barely tolerating their daily life. They're having panic attacks every day. Let's just address this acuity, and then we'll go into more of the thought process things in like later sessions, that kind of thing. Instead of just hanging out and exploring, not hanging out, but like just kind of sitting in that exploration spot for an extended period of time during that first session. She really just was like, okay, here's the information. Let's get you some tools pretty quickly. And I thought that was interesting. Instead of
Yeah.
just sitting and exploring and taking in all of the details. Because that's like my thing is I love information and I like to be able to see as much of the whole picture as possible. And so I kind of feel that pressure a little bit. Even when I talked to Jillian a little bit ago, like I was like, do I need to just bounce into giving tool, or do I just need to like sit and listen and take in
Yeah.
information a little bit?
That's good. So I think how, everybody's going to be different, just like she said, how long is this going to take? Well, everybody's different, right? And that's the truth. It's, some people need triage, right? So they need to get to a stable place or a place of regulating their emotions and things like that. And that could take time. So what if okay, so somebody comes in and they just want to run something by you because they want they want an answer for some question that they have, right? So you get a lot of that in the counseling center at Abundant Life, and maybe they want some biblical help or something like that. And so I go, well, you probably could have just talked to a pastor, about what you had and save some money, right? So that could happen. Or you could get somebody come in that is so dysregulated that it takes weeks to even get them up to a point where they can even get to the start into exploration or anything like that. You can't explore anything because they can't regulate themselves through any of their emotions. So you have to even work through that. You'll get that like if you learn EMDR and stuff like that, where you got to get them to a spot of regulation before you can get into the work. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's spot on. It yeah, where everybody's going to be different and every session is going to be different. And yeah, and then some people, can regulate better, faster than others. And some may never ever get to a point where they regulate well because they've had either so much trauma or an attachment style,
What
Yeah.
are some tools we can use when they are dysregulated when discussing their previous trauma?
Yeah, so a lot of like mindfulness stuff, and mindfulness stuff can even or I don't want to say can even, it should include prayer, right? So, meditating on the Lord, right? Um, that'd be one form. Breathing exercises. Maddie was just talking about DBT. So DBT, there's texture, things in texture. I had a person that would carry around a rock, and it was a smooth rock, and they would just feel it with their texture, and that would be soothing for them.
Well, the counselor friend, I guess what prompted this, I remember her telling me that she has a desk off to the side of like art supplies. And if she sees that they're ramping up emotionally, she asks them to go to the table and color or draw or something.
Yeah,
She keeps them talking while they're doing that.
I love that. That's awesome. And so it sounds like that's a skill of hers and she's very good at it. And I probably
I
wouldn't be
didn't
so
get
good
the
at it.
idea that it was art therapy per se, as much as just almost like a fidget toy would be.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's good.
One of my client, the first time she came, she was so anxious that she was like doing this. And so I asked her, I'm like, okay, let's stop right now and just stop talking and let's take a deep breath together, you and me. Because she was just, and she was doing this, like she was so anxious at the moment. And I asked him, like, do you need some water? Do you need to step away? Do you need, just, she's like, the coming to the counseling office that morning was so brutal for her.
Mhm.
And, she was so honest to me. And so I
Mhm.
made her, we did the breathing exercise right there, right then. Like, we did together because I'm like, there's no way you can be open to me if you're feeling this way.
It's
And
good.
so that was, I mean, definitely like, I was a little scared too because I'm like, oh, this is one of my first, and you're doing this right now.
Yeah, that's yeah, very good. Some other things that, I ought to put this out there. If I don't, somebody remind me, but well, I've got this mindfulness exercise thing that I did. And it's about 20 minutes long, but it's got two separate things in it. And one is pick a safe place. And so it's kind of you're sitting with them and you're going, tell me about a place where you feel the safest, right? And let's just take for example the beach, right? And so I go, okay, so let's pick the beach. What are 5 things that you see, right? And then it's kind of visualization. They see birds, they see people, they see water, they see sand, they see whatever. And then what are five or whatever things that you hear? So I hear birds, I hear the water, I hear this, I hear people, blah, blah. Um, See, hear, taste, smell, all of those things, right? All of the senses. The reason why you're doing it is to bring them to the present, the here and now. But what you're also doing is if they feel safe in that place, you're having them visualize, and I want them to do this over and over and over again. But so when they get into a certain spot and they've practiced this, what I do at the end of it is I'd say, name that place, right? So they could be beach, could be Panama Beach, it could be whatever it is, right? Panama City Beach, whatever it is. And so then when they get in a place where they need that regulation, they can just say that word. And if they've practiced it enough, it should take them to it. So, like if they're sitting on the beach, I want to go through and go, what are you feeling right now? Oh, I'm feeling the wind wind. I'm feeling the heat from the sun. I'm feeling the breeze. I'm feeling, the water spray on me, whatever it is. And I want them to be able to feel that. So the next one I have is it's going through scanning your body, right? So I say, okay, you're sitting there and a light from God comes down and hits the top of your head and you start scanning. What are you feeling? So what you're trying to get to is where are they feeling this tension in their body? Like I carry my tension right in my shoulders. And I'll notice like if I'm doing my homework and all this stuff and I'll sit down, I'm like, man, my shoulders hurt. And I look, well, I've got them like this, So then I just gotta, do that type of thing, right? So that's where I carry my tension. People may carry their tension in other places. So you're doing this scan on their body, this light from God coming down, and where am I feeling all this? So that's another one. The reason why I say I want to put that out there, but well, I'm wondering if it will still be there because I just ended my thing with this. It was like a server I was paying monthly for, and I just wasn't using it enough. So for podcast. So anyway, hopefully it'll still work. Anybody else have any thoughts on mindfulness things that they do? Like, do you have a favorite scripture? Like when you get into, a time of anxiousness or anxiety that you say to yourself, anything
Yeah,
like,
Teen Challenge, I did different things like because the environment was so much different, I might move the session outside.
mm-hmm.
Let's go sit down under this tree, or let's go for a walk around the property. Um, you know, I might grab a juice box or Coke or something out of the fridge and give them. There were other tools I had that I won't have anymore in this new environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's good.
Whenever I would want to go act in some fit of anger at my old job at the doctor's office, I would sneak off to the bathroom like with my phone and like my little Bible phone app and just read Psalm 77.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that. Anybody else? Any other thoughts about that video?
I like Romans 8:28.
That's good. What's that do for you?
It helps me. I mean, I'm not perfect at this, but if I'm fully trusting in God, of course, I can say, well, I know all things work together for good.
That's right.
So I'll trust. It doesn't look like this is working out right. I'm anxious about whatever I fear is getting ready to happen, but I know whatever it is, if I'm trusting in God and His Word, He said everything's going to work out.
That's right. He's so much bigger than us, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. That's good. Anybody else? Did you feel that was a good video for your first getting in? Okay, good.
Hey, Doug, I really liked the idea, especially for the niche that I'm interested in serving.
Yeah.
I really think that is what men, especially, would be appealing. Hey, let's just get right to the nitty gritty. Give me some tools. Let me try them, and just let me feel heard. I love her whole synopsis was she likes to make the client feel heard, and then provide some tools for them. And let's get together next time and see how it worked out.
You know what? Charlie, I've been thinking a lot about your stuff, and it is a whole different type of clientele. And I'm wondering, they don't want to sit around and talk about their feelings and all that. I get that. But I'm wondering if you do start it off that way and give them tools and things like that too. But if they had partners where they were, mentors or just partners in some way, if they did have it, and it would probably depend upon the relationship that they had with each other, because some people just aren't going to mesh as well or whatever, or people may not have,
Right.
but have an opportunity for them to open up just to one other person, not a group or whatever. But I don't know. I always kind of just think through.
Actually, when we had our group class, that's one thing I started thinking. I would think that a group of guys would be more willing actually to open up amongst a group of other guys than just one on one, because it almost feels too intimate. At least that's the way I think about it.
That's
Wait a
very
minute,
good.
if I had the choice, I think I would rather try to open up to a group of guys where, in my mind, there's going to be a couple of guys that are going to relate at least, even if everybody else says, "Oh, what a wuss," there's going to be somebody there that can relate. And so,
Yeah.
at least at first. But I hear what you're saying too. I can see some value in that. Maybe eventually, like teaming up a couple of guys that are like, hey, I know another guy. I've got a buddy, and that we actually do that now. Hey, I've got a buddy that has a similar story. And we always seem to meet that other guy in a group of other guys.
That's good. Yeah, absolutely. And one
So
thing I was thinking of is like, that group stuff, where you have like you do group, but you also have a mentor that you can call or whatever during times or whatever. I don't know.
yeah,
Thinking of that
that's a
model.
good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to tell you last week, you said something that really, you said basically we should make our goal to stay in the exploration stage, and the other stage, the insight phase and the working stage, they'll all kind of naturally evolve. And
Yeah.
then one thing I took from today's lecture was that, hey, it's okay. You might slip back into the exploration stage once even in the working stage, you might, actually let's explore this a little more. And so I kind of like the idea of like, hey, make my whole goal. Like when I was talking to Dylan, one thing this past week, one of the things I realized was, what, this is kind of actually really special where I'm not doing anything more than just trying to understand Dylan. That's one of my big takeaways.
Oh, I love
And it
that.
wasn't like I'm trying to think of the right thing to say to move him to the next or to give him some aha moment. All I'm doing is trying to understand where he's coming from, and then the Holy Spirit does the work. I love somebody said that last week too.
I love that. So that's awesome. So let me ask you this. So now that you've explained that, um, and remember, I've always say, always be curious, always be asking these questions to find out, because if they have insight into things, their life is changing, and they may change a little bit during that time. So if I can be curious, I can understand that change that they're going in, in the direction that they're heading. And instead of me staying in that one stage where they've already made a change and a switch, but I'm staying in
Oh
one,
yeah,
mentally keeping them in this box when they're out of this box and flourishing and doing all that. But the other part you said about the Holy Spirit takes so much pressure off. I'm just
yeah,
in my little mind, I'm asking these questions, but God has so much more for this person in front of me that I can't even fathom. And
right.
I have to be open to the Holy Spirit moving so much, right? And not to not to delay or to be a barrier to that change. That's so good.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Thank
like evangelism.
you.
You know,
Yes.
you plant the seed, and then all you can do is be the vessel. I think it was Carolyn that said that last week. Actually, I want to give her proper credit. That really opened my eyes. Because then you can compare it to, especially as a Christian counselor, you can compare helping people to evangelism. All you're doing is being that vessel for the Holy Spirit to use, and you don't have to. It takes a lot of pressure off. One thing I started thinking is there's been several moments where I'm like, man, am I doing the right thing? I'm not cut out for this. I'm not good at this, and that really really helped me last week to think about all that.
That's so good. Absolutely. Well, God's got you here for a reason.
Amen.
Which is it's interesting you say that, Charlie. It's like what I've heard from a lot of people on the other side, like who have thought they're doing so much for the kingdom of God, helping people left and right, leading them to Christ. A lot of the time, they'll say, "Yeah," and then something happened where I couldn't work in ministry for a while, where I couldn't do anything, and got bitter about it for a while, and then realized, oh, that was God kind of gently telling me, "Hey, I don't need you. I can do this with anyone, and regardless, it's my spirit that works anyway."
So, and the other part, taking the pressure off of you is because, maybe we do plant the seed, but I'll tell you, in counseling, in ministry, all of these things, you may never ever see the end result of something, but just have faith that God has all of that taken care of, and we are just maybe just a small part of the whole picture, the whole story. And and when I pray, I say this a lot, and I say, if there's just one word that a person needs to come to salvation, please, I pray that they get that today. You know what I mean? It's just one word, such a small thing, but it's such a big thing too. Anyway, I mean, it's just one word in counseling that could be given to them that could be life changing. And maybe it's disclosure that you have or something, you know. Anyway, the Holy Spirit gives that to you. It takes the pressure off. I love that. Well, you guys are awesome. Thanks for hanging in there tonight, giving me all your thoughts and and questions and everything too. I appreciate each and every one of you. Here, let me stop this.